Fox News.
Yeah, but what's the reason?
I'm sure Jimmy Dore will tell us. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen. What does it say? Don't kill the DJ?
Oh my god, that was the old stream. Shut it down.
Alrighty then. Okay. Yesterday morning, I woke up to, shout out to Pirate Alex.
An interesting turn of events.
I woke up to an interesting and unpredictable turn of events, dear listener. I woke up to the very fascinating news that our good friend Tucker Carlson had parted ways with CNN. Now, the same day that Don Lemon had parted ways with CNN. Now, what's up, Juan? I would have done a story on Don Lemon getting canned at CNN, but that was one of those situations where everybody saw that coming.
Yeah.
He was saying all the sexist, misogynist stuff.
Women in their prime.
He was like telling the producer what to do on the show. What's that, Delaney? That was one of those things where it was like, it was obvious.
And he was like not listening to like obvious cues from the lady was like, she's like looking at him like she's like, oh,
yeah,
stop.
I know. Doing one of these things that my brother used to do.
And he just like kept right on going. In comes the music. He shuts him down.
When I would
hold the music. It's like, what are you doing? Are you the producer?
I'd start mouthing off to my mom, and Judy would be like,
enough.
He'd be like, enough.
Some people don't listen to cues.
Exercise in Freedom says, I'm not surprised at all. I don't trust pundits, but he's the closest to the truth teller in the mainstream media. He's bad for the government establishment control. Well, I think we're going to actually be talking about that. But yeah, Don Lemon was kind of melting down before everybody's eyes. And so that one, and the other thing about Don Lemon, honestly, was his ratings were terrible.
Yeah, that to me was obvious.
He was deeply unpopular, extremely stylish, but
that's not enough.
terribly unpopular.
Yeah.
Don Lemon being terminated makes all the sense in the world. Tucker Carlson being terminated, as Ascender Prime is saying, in a capitalist environment, makes no sense. Apparently, this dude is worth $360 million to Fox News.
Yeah, but there was a recent lawsuit, apparently. But even with the lawsuit that
they had the Dominion lawsuit where they basically lied about the election, which I think is just completely ridiculous. The MSNBC and CNN for 4 years lied to us about the results of the 2016 election. There was no... I'm not even going to get it. That's why I didn't even cover the Dominion lawsuit. All the big lie stuff, I didn't even cover it, because the fact of the matter is, I've experienced you stole the election from me since Al Gore. So yeah, I'm not going to get into this like false moralization about, they lied about our democracy. Shut up. I don't care. You had the lawsuit. That's fine. I'm not going to cry for Rupert Murdoch. I don't care about him. However, Tucker Carlson is a story, because it doesn't make sense that a guy like him gets terminated that quickly. Yeah. When he is literally the number one cash cow. He's gonna be fine. Like, I don't feel bad for Tucker Carlson. I'm gonna share later on, but I'm seeing a lot of people celebrating this on the left.
It's so unwise.
Like,
it's like you can't see what's happening. Tucker's voice is not going to be silent.
This is not a good development.
You just emboldened his people, because now you've martyred him.
He's a Christ figure now.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
He's a Christ.
You essentially made this man a god. Sure,
right. And I think
foolishness will be plain to all. I guess
the same people that gave Joe Rogan, was it $500 million they gave Rogan? Spotify.
Yeah. I don't know how much it was, but
go to YouTube.
You would know better.
Go to YouTube and look at a Tucker Carlson video, and then look at a Joe Rogan video. If people think that this is going to sharpen the edge of his knife,
100%.
If you thought that he was, anyway, I don't. Yeah, AOC was loving it. She went on talking about deplatforming works. We need to keep doing it. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And
but
she had this like
said something
weird
before.
smirk on her face, like
she said something before he got fired that should happen.
Oh yeah. She said that.
So
she almost said that the entire Fox News should be basically censored and all the rest of it. This is what these people do.
Yeah. So I don't know if she thought like that this is as a result of what she said.
Okay, so we've got Lawyer Paul. Lawyer Paul says it's about a sexual harassment suit.
Yo, I hope not.
I want to see it. I want to. I find that very hard to believe that Tucker Carlson sexually harassed anybody. I just find that very hard to believe.
I hope not.
My opinion. Updated word is that Tucker is still a Fox employee and did not get terminated. What?
How could that be?
No.
Okay, so
I'm gonna Google that right now because, like I said, I think it would be a major mistake for them
to do that.
Unless he murdered someone and there's an actual video evidence.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in Fox said, whoa, what are we talking about here? This is Tucker Carlson. This is $700 million. We just lost. I mean, they just lost $700 million with the Dominion lawsuit. They settled out of court. Now they're losing another $700 million by losing Tucker Carlson. Like, and their stocks are going down. People are turning on Fox News, and there are
it's shocking.
There are other outlets like OAN and other things like that that are like trying to get to that level. And if they land Tucker Carlson,
that's it.
There's going to be a bunch of it's not the same anymore like back in the day where if you took somebody off TV, that was it.
People, yeah, right, exactly. There's so many other platforms, and people love them some Tucker.
Are you kidding? Tucker is a creep always and always has been lawsuit coming. Okay, Chris.
What evidence? You can't just say something like that. Like, what evidence? What are you talking about?
Chris, did you vote for Joe Biden?
Yeah.
There's not even
giant elephant in the room right now.
There's not even a Me Too thing about Tucker Carlson. I've never heard anybody call Tucker Carlson a creep. I've heard them call him a racist. Yeah. I've heard them call him, which I agree. I've heard them call him a whole bunch of things. I didn't. Now all of a sudden, he's
we care about creepers.
Now he's a creeper. That doesn't make any sense to me.
All right, ridiculous.
You bet your ass I did. It's coming. Okay, get me the data. Get me the info. You said he was creepy. So what creepy things has he done? I mean, I've got our president sniffing the heads of prepubescent girls. I've got him, encroaching on their space and all that. Here's Chris. It's coming. Okay.
Well, we know what that means.
This was. You remember the one with the feminists? Shout out to Chris. I love Chris. But remember with the feminists and how he said that the feminists took hammers to people?
Oh, the pictures.
And it was just, they broke into the art studio at like 4 in the morning to make sure nobody got hurt. And then I said, Chris, that doesn't say what you said. He said, keep looking.
Honestly, I actually told the kids about that. It was so funny.
Shout out to Chris. Hey, Java the Cat says, hi, Vin, and sorry I get so involved with listening to your show. I don't really chat, but want to let you know how much I enjoy and appreciate what you do. Thank you so much, Java.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah. Tucker has a bunch of daughters. He loves them all. Even if he didn't have any daughters, he just never gave off that vibe. And for years, there have been ample time to put a Me Too thing against Tucker and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
It never happened. So I need to see some evidence.
Wasn't he brought in after that other guy from Fox had all
Bill
that
O'Reilly.
stuff? So it's
Correct.
like your establishment already had like this major issue with that. Like you're gonna hire somebody else that gives you the question marks. I don't think you want that coming up back to back that you hired people like that. Yeah.
Thoughts on Marianne Wilson?
There needs to be more evidence before we believe that.
I am not... The thing about Marianne Wilson is I'm not sure when she's being serious or not. You know, she's like, we're going to fight you with love. Remember she said that during the debates? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I don't remember that. We're gonna fight with. I'm gonna fight who with love.
Yeah, I know. Okay, all right. We're rambling now. Here is Jimmy Dore. Here is Jimmy Dore covering the Tucker Carlson situation. Okay, so it's Abby Horsberg versus Fox.
Okay.
And now this is the
evidence that supposedly he was doing some shit. Okay.
Okay, so she's a producer. Former Fox producer speaks out. She spoke out 4 weeks ago, suing the company, alleging, among other things, she was harassed and retaliated.
Harassed how?
Against. Gosper sat down NBC News and the Dominion lawsuit. Fox says her legal claims were riddled with false accusation. She didn't.
It doesn't say what kind of accusation.
Tucker in there. She talked about retaliation for testifying about the Dominion suit. In a lawsuit, Tucker Carlson is accused of promoting a hostile work environment. Carlson's former head of booking, Abby Gross, said the male producers regularly used vulgarities to describe women and frequently made anti-Semitic jokes.
Okay.
Male producers regularly use vulgarities. How is that about Tucker?
Yeah. That's producers. He's not a producer.
I mean, it's his show, but...
Oh, he is a producer?
2 lawsuits against the company after several years as a senior producer, naming Mr. Carlson that male producers regularly use vulgarities to describe women frequently made. On her first day of working for Mr. Carlson, Ms. Grossberg said she discovered the office was decorated with large pictures of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wearing a plunging swimsuit. I don't care. I mean, I don't care about that. I don't care. That's
Nancy Pelosi.
I don't care. That is Nancy Pelosi in a plunging, whatever is funny. Okay. Joe Biden sniffing some girl's hair while she's like desperately trying to get away from him. And then we've got a diary where the daughter said, maybe I shouldn't have been showering with my dad.
Yeah. Come on.
I don't know. All right. Exercise and Freedom goes, the horror. She claims to have 90 tapes of him saying questionable stuff. Okay. Leah, in the questionable stuff, was there anything directed at her? Because I don't need Tucker Carlson to be a saint. I don't need any of these people to be a saint.
Right, yeah.
I'm certainly not. I mean, I've said a whole bunch of shit on this channel where, fuck this. I don't say the N-word. I say nigger. I don't say the F-word. I say... So it's like, I don't care. Like, he doesn't need to keep it completely clean. What I'm concerned about is he doing the Tara Reid thing that Joe Biden did? Where is somebody going to say Tucker Carlson cornered me in a corner and put his hands down my pants like what Tara Reid said about Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Right. Or the things that we've seen Joe Biden do to prepubescent girls on camera. If there's evidence of that, fine. But if he said something like "fuck Nancy Pelosi," blah blah blah, like I don't want to hear that. I'm sorry. Yeah. We're adults. I don't care about Nancy Pelosi and a plunging. That'd be funny and sickening simultaneously. It's like those shows that we watch. Like it's like, oh no, they're eating a person.
I don't understand how they can do that though. You'd think that.
Do what?
Put a picture of her up in a plunging swimsuit.
Well, I mean, you just Photoshop it.
Yeah, I know. I'm still surprised that they can, not that they can do it physically, but that they are doing it. Like, I agree. I think that shouldn't be hanging up in an office. That's not appropriate.
Well, she didn't say it was in an office. It was probably somebody's room, or there's a team room, or there's a whatever. Yeah. I mean, I just don't care. I don't care. But you know what? I'm a dude. Like, would you be like completely uncomfortable with that? Like to the point where you'd sue if you saw Nancy Pelosi?
No.
Considering the type of person Nancy Pelosi was. I mean, are you familiar with Nancy Pelosi?
Not as much, no.
Okay.
So
she's like she was the biggest fundraiser for the Democrats. Her husband got attacked, the whole hammer attack.
She's the one that ripped the paper or something in the middle.
Yes. Yeah, she ripped the paper. Yeah, she's doing all types of stupid, immature shit like that. Exactly. So it's like, come on, man. Like, she's fair game. You guys were calling Trump the orange one and all the rest of it. So Nancy Pelosi's fair game to me. I don't care.
I don't think that a woman's sexuality should be fair game.
I mean, it wasn't her sexuality. It was her physical presentation. Just like they would talk about Trump being overweight and tan and orange. They were making physical comments about Trump's body.
Yeah, but it was true. He was orange. She's not going out there in a swimsuit for all the world to see.
Well,
I mean, Trump was orange.
Well, the point is they're both insulting. So if you were a fat, overweight person and you kept hearing about how fat Trump was, that could hurt somebody. But you know what? Be a fucking adult. I honestly do not care. Look, it's fair game. You guys talked about Trump. You talked about every aspect of his being. You even talked about his kids. That's politics.
Yeah,
politics
think,
is an ugly game. I gotta see an actual fucking crime. Go ahead.
From the perspective of, I don't think that it's a crime, but I do think that it creates an uncomfortable environment for women to be in, because it's like, okay, so if all of a sudden they have an issue with me, will they also do that with me? Like, will my face be attached to some whatever?
Okay, so if a guy says, oh, well, if they do that to Trump, if I gain a couple pounds, are they going to do it to me? It's the same problem.
No, because a woman's sexuality has been treated. I mean, we historically have issues with assault and with different stuff like that. So I just think that I think that's, you shouldn't cross that line.
But it's okay to talk about guys.
No, I think if you were talking about, like, let's say she had weird hair or she was wearing a wig and it flapped up and somebody said something about it, I don't think it would be nice. But I don't think that it's the same as going about it in a sexual way. Like,
how's it sexual? It's a bathing suit. How's a bathing suit sexual?
It's a plunging neckline, and that is not how she presents herself in public. She presents herself as a woman who is dressed up in a suit, and now you're putting her in a bathing suit with a plunging neckline.
That's satire, though. They did the same thing with Trump. They do it with every politician.
They put him in what?
They did it with Michelle Obama. They did it with Barack Obama. They had
yeah,
Michelle as a monkey. They had...
Yeah.
My thing is...
Agree to disagree.
No, my thing is when the girls step into the ring, you got to play by the rules that everybody plays with. There's no special rules for you because you're a girl. If you get into the ring, look, politicians get murdered every single day on late night shows and all the rest of it. They get torn to shreds. They get called all types of names and all the rest of it. My thing is, look, if you're going to get in that circle, that's how they're going to treat you. Period. We're not going to have like two separate rules for women and one for men. If you want to get in the circle, then get in the circle. And this is the reason why, by the way, I made a point to never disrespect Trump, never disrespect Biden. You, though, have disrespected Biden's mental situation, which he cannot control. Right?
Well, I think that, I don't think he should be president in that condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you made fun. So here we got Biden. It's a male guy who is. You've got millions of people.
There's no history with that.
There's no history for you with that.
For men in general, that is not a history.
You're wrong. You're wrong. Men's talents, when a man's talent goes, they have a real crisis. Whether it's sports or intellectually or whatever. And you have come on camera in front of thousands of people and mocked this man's mental degeneration.
I have said he should never have been put in that situation.
No, we're not talking about that. I'm talking about your mockery of him. You've mocked him. And what I'm saying is you mocked him for not necessarily because he was sniffing girls' hair. You mocked him for his mental degeneracy, which he can't control. So,
no, but he can control whether or not he runs for president, and we can control whether or not we vote for him.
But you mocked him. So my point is...
Well, it was wrong to mock him.
My point is, if a girl steps in the circle, she steps in the circle. You're going to get treated like everybody else. She should take that as a sign of honor that she's being treated like the boys. And by the way... I've never heard Nancy Pelosi even complain about all the things that have been said about her because Nancy Pelosi understands. She understands. So
it's the same thing with that other girl.
If my daughters,
they went and made a porn off of that other girl. She stepped in the ring. They made a porno off of her.
So
somebody that looks like that's wrong.
She didn't complain about it though.
It's still wrong.
She didn't claim to be a victim.
Yeah, it's still wrong.
We're not disputing whether or not it's wrong. What we're disputing is whether or not there are legal ramifications to it. What I'm saying is.
Whether or not there are legal ramifications?
Yeah, we're talking about sexual harassment and all the rest of it. What I'm saying is...
I don't think that there should be... I don't think that somebody should be legally in trouble for putting up that picture. I just don't think that it should be happening in a professional environment.
What do you mean?
I mean, just the same as if you're working...
Tucker Carlson is not a... They were never a professional environment. What are you talking about? They're just making fun of the leaders of the world. Have you seen a Tucker Carlson segment? He laughs at his own guests. Like, everybody knows what it is. But like I said, I have daughters. If my daughters came to me and said, "Oh my God, there's a Pelosi thing," I'm like, "Yeah, you're in Washington. What do you think's going to happen?" That's what I would say to them. I would prepare them before that. I'd say, "Listen, this is the arena you're going into. This is what's going to happen." The only time I've ever seen a woman actually victimized by this whole thing was Monica Lewinsky. She didn't ask for that shit. And she was a young teenager, but Nancy Pelosi, I don't feel bad for her. No. And she also went out of her way to publicly disrespect the president. She publicly disrespected the president on numerous occasions.
Yeah, she did.
And so your hat's in the ring. That's it. Your hat's in the ring if you're going to do that. Okay. But this is why we have these conversations. All right, here we go. Nancy's drunk most of the time. No, she wasn't. Let's go. Here's Jimmy
Tucker Carlson
Dore.
and Fox News part ways. This is from The Hill. Tucker Carlson has parted ways with Fox News, the network said on Monday. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. Carlson's last show was Friday, the network said.
Okay, so we got one guy saying that they made a mistake and Tucker is actually going to come back. I haven't seen...
We made a mistake?
Yeah, basically.
They had that girl go up there and make that announcement and everything?
I know. I haven't seen
but
that.
I guess the higher ups didn't know about that. I love it when they do that.
I know.
When everything blows up like the Budweiser thing, then they're like, "Oh wait, us higher ups, we had no idea that this is going to happen. We had no idea that our company was participating in something so controversial. Let's fire the people."
Yeah.
We didn't know. It's like, come on. All right, somebody's head had to roll. We'll just pretend we didn't.
Yeah.
We'll go along.
Tucker Carlson was Fox's top-rated primetime host, netting an average of more than 3 million viewers per night, the most of any pundit on cable television. His departure from the network came less than a week after Fox agreed to pay $787 million to settle a defamation lawsuit brought by Dominion Voting Systems over coverage of former President Trump's false claims of voter fraud in the company's software. But here's this from the LA Times. The decision to fire Tucker Carlson came...
Ben, this is the last time I'm going to warn you. Never, ever, 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 ever use that word toward Michelle again in your life or anybody in our channel. Never use that word ever again. Dude, I love you. You know that I love you. But I will fucking excise you from this channel. Stop it. You can make your point without the misogynistic bullshit. Don't make me choose between my love for you and my principles. Because you're going to lose. There's a whole bunch of other ways you can insult somebody. We're not going to use any gender-specific insults here. Stop it. We continue. Yeah, if the girl was in the office and they were calling her a cunt bag, I'd say yeah.
Well, I think that's a gender-specific insult.
No, it's not. It's a Pelosi-specific insult. Because if they would have put you in that suit, it wouldn't be insulting, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. We continue. I'm taking names now, boy. You can't deal with me. I took some of my brain thing. You can't fuck with me right now. We continue.
Straight from Fox Corps chairman Rupert Murdoch, according to people familiar with the situation.
Okay, so Rupert Murdoch he's like the big, the old shadowy guy. He owns Fox. Like, he's like the main, like, it's his. And they're saying that it came directly
firing comes directly
from him. Yep. So, like, there's no
question.
Yeah.
Murdoch is said to be concerned over Carlson's coverage of the January 6th, 2021 protests at the Capitol, where the host has promoted the conspiracy theory that it was provoked by government agents. So that's
talking about January 6th. Carlson's coverage of the insurrection at the Capitol. It's interesting because the thing says insurrection, but Mate says protest. So Mate doesn't like the term insurrection. Conspiracy theory that was provoked by government agents. Okay. It is not a conspiracy theory that government agents were implanted within the rioters. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. But what far-right people have done is say, oh, there are 3 FBI agents there. That means that the whole thing was a sham. No. What happened was you had hundreds of people, and we covered this when the January 6th situation happened. You had hundreds of people talking about they were going to hang Mike Pence, they were going to kill this person, they were going to kill that person. But the Constitution says that you have the freedom to assemble. So I need all my far-right people to think through this real quick. The Constitution says we all have the right to assembly. Good. But we also have a credible threat from a bunch of people who are saying they're going to kill officials in the U.S. government. Now, I had one of these people talking to me directly. And what they thought was going to happen was that Nancy Pelosi, they were going to, charge in, and that Nancy Pelosi and Trump had some forces, and they were going to go in together. This is what they believed. And they were going to get Nancy Pelosi and all these, they're going to bring them out in handcuffs, and then the truth was going to come out, all the crazy QAnon stuff with the kids and the blood and all this. It was all going to come out. And she was 100% convinced that this was going to happen. Okay? Now, I'd be talking to her. I'd be like, what you're talking about is fucking crazy. Just watch, Finn. Just watch. You always think you're right. Just watch. And I'd say, okay, if it doesn't happen, will you give up on this bullshit and say the whole thing was crazy? Oh, sure, blah, blah, blah. So then it happened, and Pelosi didn't get walked out, and I said, what's going on? And she's like, I got the timing wrong. So it's like, my point is, these are true believers. Okay, so now you're the government. What do? You can't stop them from assembling. But at the same time, you got crazy people like Ashley Babbitt saying, I'm going because the president told me. And you got people saying, so what do? One technique is to implant agents into the crowd and then direct them so that you have communications and you can tell who's doing what. Okay?
Yeah.
The real issue that happened with January 6th, which is what created all the issues for the conspiracy theorists, is the fact that, and I've talked about this before, Mr. Trump sat there for an hour and a half, and his newly appointed DOD sat for an hour and a half and would not give the Virginia National Guard permission to go and support the cops over there. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Now, I've been asking this question for years. Not a single one of them will answer the question. I got a guy in here who's a major Trump sort of worshiper. He'll never answer the question. Why did it take an hour and a half for him to pick up the phone for the Republican, by the way? The Republican governor of Virginia was pissed off because he could not get authorization. Okay? So those are the facts. Yep, there were feds in there. There are absolutely feds in there because you have to do command and control. You have to see where the people are going and all the rest of it. Now, how those operators work to get that information, it's anything in intelligence is always going to leave you with moral question marks. But that's what happened. But anyway, we continue.
That's the line that people close to Rupert Murdoch are apparently giving, that this was over Tucker Carlson's coverage of January 6th. And certainly this was a surprise to Tucker Carlson, because here he is on Friday night at the close of what turned out to be his last show.
And I'm especially grateful for the pie.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Employee of the week, we're just make it of the year, Tyler Morrell of Coco's Pizza. That's it for us for the week. We'll be back. By the way, the entire episode of Let Them Eat Bugs, not quite as good as pizza, streaming now on Fox Nation. Use the promo code ORIGINALS for 30 days free. And we'll be back on Monday. In the meantime, have the best weekend with the ones that you love, and we'll see you then.
Whoa.
Okay, so
he sounds like he's coming back.
He's operating under the assumption that he's going to be back on Monday. So,
guys, no clue.
This either this was like a rash decision, or they had already decided it, but they obviously had not communicated to him that this was happening.
Yikes.
That's how they saved the governor of Michigan from being raped and murdered by domestic terrorists. Yeah, you're talking about the Michigan situation where they had a dry run, and then Trump, instead of calling them thugs and all the rest of it, that if they were brown, he would have.
Yeah.
He said that they were these are good people. They're very angry. You should make a deal.
They're good people.
While the George Floyd protests were happening.
Unbelievable.
I wish we would have got that too. Like, they're just good people. They're just angry.
It's
We
crazy
got to figure
too
it out.
because if you'll remember when people were kneeling, he said, "Let's get those sons of bitches off the field."
Yeah.
So they're sons of bitches for kneeling.
Yeah.
To say, hey, like stuff has to change in our country. Like we got to come back to respecting these things.
Yeah.
But like, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Here we go.
Now get your pizzas and get out.
Now, can I just jump in and say that I challenge the
Jimmy with the hat.
veracity of that claim by the LA Times, or what Rupert Murdoch says, that the real reason why they're firing him is because of his January 6th coverage. That's not
No.
why.
Oh, come
They're firing.
That makes no sense.
That's laughable.
First of all, Tucker's January 6th coverage is the canonical narrative of
Yeah.
pretty much every right winger.
Okay.
Tucker's coverage of January 6th was, I wasn't really that bad. I mean, look at the guy. No, man, nobody did anything wrong. It's all good. That's the canonical right-wing view of what happened on January 6th. I mean, it's complete revisionism.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the Confederate flags. We saw the hang Mike Pence. We saw the thousands of messages from the Oath Keeper saying, we're locked and loaded. We're about to kill this guy. We saw all that.
Yeah.
But Tucker's version ruled the day. And if you're on the right, I mean,
Yeah.
the idea that they fired him
Yeah.
because of his January 6th coverage is just crazy to me.
Yeah.
Weird.
No
We
one's
continue.
him for several reasons. The biggest one was that he finally brought on RFK Jr. and they told the truth about Big Pharma. Big Pharma funds news to 70%. And so I'm guessing that was the last straw. I also know that there is a split inside the Murdoch family. And Rupert Murdoch has been wanting to get rid of Tucker for a while. And so I guess there was just enough things. And I think that the 70%
Yeah, that's just still hard for me to understand because you just lost. I mean, I'm sure you're working with your attorneys. They're going to say, look, we need to settle. Okay, how much do we need to settle for? $750 million. So, like, it's just hard for me to believe that he terminated this dude on a whim after you just lost $1 billion. You're basically going to lose $2 billion over this shit.
Yeah.
Because people are mad. Like, Tucker, like, this is one of those things where it's like, this is what happens when one guy has too much power, because I'm sure the bean counters were against this. I'm sure the bean counters were like, give him another year. Like, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, and I also think they didn't understand that. I don't think that a lot of the people that I listen, like a lot of my really far right, I've got a couple like really far right, you know, like you're concerned for them, like far right friends. I've got a couple of them. None of them like Fox. Tucker was the only reason they gave Fox any attention in the first place. So I understand, like, initially Fox made Tucker, but he made Fox at this point. Like, people were tired of Fox. Sean Hannity's not popular. I mean, if you look at these, you know, these shows where you got one guy that's ruling the hour, like, it's him, and then everybody else is like at a completely. He's like LeBron James, honestly, Tucker. Like I said, he's got some racist shit I'm not a fan of. His critical race theory thing was a complete exercise in racist disinformation. Yeah. But at the same, that doesn't make him. That's not the entirety of who he is.
Right.
And if you just look at what he's done, like, it's mind-boggling to me that they would. It's mind-boggling.
Ryan says Fox did Tucker a favor. Corporate media is a dying medium. People are migrating to online platforms. The Blaze, Daily Wire, TYT, Newsmax, etc. He will make a fortune with whoever hires him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, Ryan.
No, that's a really, really, really good analysis. Really good analysis, Ryan.
advertisers coming down on them, Big Pharma. I think that was all it took. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, Jimmy, here's a clip you're talking about. Here's Lee Fong reporting it. Tucker Carlson last week.
Okay. Tucker might lose ratings, but will gain advertisers, so it's not that simple of an equation. Firing Tucker might lose ratings. Yeah, but you can only charge certain premiums on your advertising dollars based on the ratings that you have. So if Newsmax or OAN has Tucker Carlson at 8 p.m. and they have whoever they put in there at 8 p.m., I don't know who it is, but it's not going to be like Tucker.
Do you think
they're not going to be able to charge as much?
So you don't think that it had anything to do with what he said about Big Pharma and Big Pharma pulling out of advertising with them? So you don't think it had anything to do with, hey, if we fire Tucker and then we can get Big Pharma back as advertisers. Maybe they make a lot from Big Pharma.
$1 billion though?
Think about how expensive it is to buy spots.
I don't know about $1 billion. I don't know.
Can you think about how much Big Pharma would pay to put out misinformation? And Tucker wasn't going along with it. So if you put out the misinformation that everybody should get this shot and it's going to cost whatever, and like you push that and then the masses go and get it, like I can see why. Or if you do the opposite and you're saying what Tucker was not going along with all of that. So I could see how Big Pharma, especially that group of people, because you're more likely, right, to be able to get people on the right to go along with it, would you say? The stuff that Big Pharma's doing? Or do you think that's, what's your take on that?
I don't know. Here's the Big Pharma
Rip
part.
Big Pharma spending hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads and news outlets routinely parroting drug industry talking points. Is there a single example of a CNN, MSNBC, or other Fox News host ever discussing TV advertising corruption?
No.
And here's what Tucker said.
And try this at home. Ask yourself, is any news organization you know of so corrupt that it's willing to hurt you on behalf of its biggest advertisers?
Wow.
Anyone who do that is obviously Pablo Escobar level corrupt and should not be trusted. Wow. What would that look like? That level of corruption.
Wow.
Well, imagine that the Trump administration had made it mandatory for American citizens to buy MyPillow. That's one of Fox News' biggest advertisers. Imagine the administration declared that if you didn't rush out and buy at least one MyPillow and then at least another booster pillow, you would not be allowed to eat out. You couldn't re-enter your own country. You couldn't have a paying job. MyPillow, they told you with a straight face, was the very linchpin of our country's public health system. Now imagine as they told you that Fox, as a news organization, endorsed it, amplified the government's message. Imagine if Fox News attacked anyone who refused to buy MyPillow as an ally of Russia, as an enemy of science. And then imagine that Fox kept up those libelous attacks even as evidence mounted that MyPillow caused heart attacks, fertility problems, and death. If Fox News did that, what would you think of Fox News? Would you trust us? Of course you wouldn't. You would know that we were liars. Thank heaven Fox News never did anything like that, but the other channels did. The other channels took hundreds of millions of dollars from big pharma companies, and then they shilled for their sketchy products on the air. And as they did that, they maligned anyone who was skeptical of those products. At the very least, this was a moral crime. It was disgusting, but it was universal. It happened across the American news media. They all did it. So at this point, the question isn't who in public life is corrupt, too many to count.
Who is it?
The question is, who is telling the truth?
Oh my God. No.
Okay, so this is kind of an argument that defeats itself. This is kind of the argument that Aaron's making, Jimmy's making, I'm assuming you made. They termed him because of Big Pharma. But he's making the claim here that Fox didn't take hundreds of millions from Big Pharma.
Right.
That it was CNN and MSNBC.
Right, exactly.
So then why would they fire him?
No, because they weren't doing that. But then as the pressure increases and they're like, we're losing so much money from Big Pharma because we don't have those advertisements anymore, then they get sued.
No, it wasn't advertisements. It was, what he's talking about is all the COVID stuff.
Yeah, well, if you put out the same message as the government is telling you to do, Big Pharma pays you for that. If you go along with their narrative and you say you should have this, there's the booster.
Well, Pfizer bought out spots on CNN and MSNBC, but
right.
here's where the thing is flawed. And
okay.
The three of you are saying it's not just you. He got turned because he was going against Big Pharma. But in this video, he's claiming we didn't take the Big Pharma money. So why would they lose $1 billion of Tucker Carlson when they weren't taking the Pfizer money in the first place?
Because I think that they did the calculation and they said, okay, we're making this much off him. They got a lawsuit, so they lost more money because of Tucker. And
no, it wasn't because of Tucker. It was because they went along with the Dominion stuff about the votes not being counted correctly and all the rest of it. That's what happened. The entire network did that. The entire network got sued for that. That wasn't Tucker.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he definitely played into that theory, and he played around with it. But
well, I mean, my thought is still the same, that they made the calculation, like, we can not do what Big Pharma is saying, or we can go along with it like the other places did.
Well, it's
and if
impossible
we do,
now because
you've already done the one narrative.
yeah, the CDC and all the rest of it have come out and said, well, the booster doesn't really stop. It doesn't stop all the shit that they were telling us, like, oh, it'll stop transmission.
Yeah, but it's going to be something else. There's going to be something else that Big Pharma wants to advertise for. You disagree. You don't think so.
Yeah, what's happening here is he's dissing Big Pharma, CNN, and MSNBC and making Fox look like a company with morals.
Yeah.
I don't see how that is going to get you to fire him.
Well, what do you think it is then? What's your...
I don't know. I really don't know. Well, I actually do know. I have a theory. I do have a theory.
Okay.
And I think it'll come out soon.
Okay.
But, and here's the other thing. They did the vaccine. The vaccine was mandatory at Fox headquarters. See, that's the thing about this whole vaccine discussion. Like, that's why I give everybody a very, like, wide rope with the vaccine thing. Because while Fox was saying... Because here's what was happening. Fox's the constituency was, you know, like my friend, like complete wild-eyed, you know, a lot of them supported January 6th. A lot of them would have been fine if the January 6th thing would have been successful.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating too, because this is one of the things that like really made me like question the whole cult of personality thing with Trump, where I had to give a lot of Trump supporters a lot of credit, was because Trump was the one that got the vaccine pushed. But every time Trump would bring up the vaccine, the crowd would boo him. And he eventually had to throw it away. So at that point, I had to say, okay, the stereotype of like the zombie Trump person who just follows everything Trump says, that's not true. Mm-hmm. Because when it came to the vaccine, and initially they were speculating about the vaccine, but when it became super unpopular, and this is where Newsmax and OAN, a lot of people are sleeping on Newsmax and OAN. Okay, but those people were also influencing Fox viewers relative to the vaccine. Mm-hmm. And in that situation, I'm sorry, they turned out to be right. I'm sorry. Say what you want to say. Not every little thing that they were saying was right, but the general idea, they were right. That's just a fact. Okay? And if you don't want to give that to them, I understand, but I don't care because I don't own the truth and neither do they. Mm-hmm. The truth is just the truth. And I have to say, I think they were right relative to the vaccine. And they stood their ground even against Trump. And you got to give them credit for that. Because you want to stereotype every Trump supporter as like, oh, this is zombie who's going to jump say how high when Trump says jump. I'm sorry, that's not what happened. They went up against him. You got to give them that. So the Big Pharma conspiracy or the Big Pharma motive, it's like a 0.2 for me. I don't subscribe to it. You do. A lot of people I respect do, so I don't think it's crazy. I think it's
no, I don't think it's crazy. I am curious to see what you have for another idea.
If we watch, honestly, I never watch Fox. We don't watch Fox other than Tucker because he was funny. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Dore is funny. You got to have some comedy in this thing. This shit is we're marching to the apocalypse here, dear listener.
Art Perez says Tucker never pushed the Dominion discrepancy. In my opinion, Big Pharma threatened to pull all support.
Okay,
because
I can see
somebody was saying that they already like that they were still receiving support from Big Pharma, like a big percentage of it.
Yeah, look, yeah, they didn't do the vaccine thing, but you know, obviously there's still going to be commercials like, hey, you have this nasal spray or whatever. But the problem is when people say things like Big Pharma, they make it look like it's just this one homogenous organization. That's not true. Like there's Pfizer, there's Johnson & Johnson, there's a whole bunch of and so all those groups have. So it's just not as. And the other thing is, like, let's be real here. There's a reason our life expectancy is in the mid 70s and 80s and not in the 40s like back in the day. It's advancements in medicine. So let's just calm down. Look, we know that in any capitalist seats in Laban, it's going to get corrupted because the goal is capital and not people. Mm-hmm. So you've wired corruption into the economic system with capitalism. But I don't want to like swing the other way. I mean, all of us use pharmaceuticals in one way or the other. Mm-hmm. My wife, we just did this about abortion. A woman in her mid 30s is at higher risk during a pregnancy than a 10-year-old child. Okay, that's literally a fact. So crazy. So, you know, going through the trauma of your delivery, the last one was pretty difficult. I hate saying this publicly, but I'm just now recovering from, and it happened like 6 months ago because it was pretty brutal.
And I'm like, babe, let's have another baby.
And I'm glad that we had Big Pharma there because it saved your life. I would have lost you. I'm certain I would have lost you if I didn't have Big Pharma. So let's just calm down. All right, we continue.
What? No, what? I didn't see this. No wonder they fired him. Are you kidding me?
So
he laid it out? He's giving the game away, and he's the #1 news show on it. And the reason why Tucker Carlson is able to tell you this truth about how the advertising game works in corporate news is because they took away all his advertisers, and so now he's free to say that kind of stuff. But apparently he wasn't, because the hammer came down from the top. And this was, again, let me throw it to you, Aaron. What do you think that this was?
Well, so we have the clip there. He's challenging Big Pharma, but also nobody on cable news was even close to him, even comparable in challenging the war state.
Right.
Not even close. No one covered the issues that he did. And we'll get to that in our next segment. He also...
They're talking about the war thing. This is kind of where my understanding of why he got termed actually came from. My theory is a lot more actually devious than the Big Pharma thing. We'll see in a second. Go ahead.
Featured leftist voices like us.
That's right.
Which nobody else would
Nobody would bring on. And the reason why me, you, Glenn Greenwald go on Tucker Carlson, because MSNBC, CNN, ABC wouldn't bring people on who had an anti-war message or wanted to debunk Russiagate. Even Democracy Now! Stopped bringing people on.
Okay, this is where my theory comes in. This is where my theory comes in. Because, and this is one of the reasons why I gave Tucker a listen. Like I said, Hannity, Gutfeld, all those people, like, Tucker will have Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, all the people that I got introduced to from TYT. I didn't find out who any of these people were until I started watching TYT. Then, because of Russiagate, Jimmy went off the range. He was right about Russiagate. And so there was this big fracture, and then Anna did the Me Too. We don't need to relitigate that. But once that split happened, Cenk is so, I don't want to say childish, but he hasn't matured emotionally to where he could have put it behind him. So he went completely scorched out. So anybody that sided with Jimmy relative to those little squabbles were gone from TYT. So Glenn Greenwald, who to me is the most reputable journalist of our lifetime, in my view, that's Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, who's like the everyman, but somehow is right on almost everything. All these people were basically banished from the left because they didn't go along with the stupid Russiagate thing. And so they were basically left to themselves, essentially, and Tucker would bring them on relative to war and things like that. And
that's an interesting point.
In MSNBC, which is supposed to be left-wing, CNN, like they completely froze those people out. Even when they saw their ratings were in the absolute garbage, they refused to legitimize these people and give them a voice. Tucker was the only one that would do it.
Yeah.
Okay? That's right. And like it's crazy to me, like people are saying, like, why is this guy so popular? Like, well, yeah, it's a personality quirk. A lot, 75% of this shit is personality.
There's a group of people that is attracted to a delusion and not walking in the truth, but there are also a large group of people that do want to know what's actually going on, and they don't want to bury their head in the sand and pretend that life is different than it actually is. So I think that's what people appreciated about Tucker, was that he was truthful, not about everything, obviously. I think that he really went out of his way to be dishonest on the CRT discussion, but definitely, like you said, bringing on other people to give counter narratives for the war and all that stuff. Like, I think that is an interesting point. That is an interesting point.
Yeah.
And that does seem like that would be more relevant.
And in a capitalist environment, capital is supposed to be king. So when you got a guy that is your number one cash cow, as the Senator Prime is saying, who kills a show when it's number one? Who gets rid of who gets rid of their number one cash cow? So by default, you have to have a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
There has to be some deeper meaning here. Especially, now here's Chris, ex-leftist who cashed in for the money. Chris, I love you to death, bro, but holy shit, sometimes. So Jimmy Dore is a right-winger who wants Medicare for all and socialism. He's a right-winger. No, Jimmy was right about Russiagate. Chris, you were wrong. Now, I'm not going to get into all the crazy shit you were saying during the Russiagate situation, my brother. But you were wrong. And it doesn't take anything from you as a man to admit that you were wrong. I've done it a million times. But you're wrong on that. We continue.
To debunk Russiagate, right? They stopped bringing on you. They stopped bringing on
Stephen F. Cohen, the late scholar who was one of their top guests. He was banned. He was also welcome on Tucker's show.
Glenn Greenwald was banned from.
These are experts. You remember John Hirschmeyer, who predicted literally like almost to the day the invasion, the Putin's aggression against Ukraine. He predicted that shit 12 years ago, passionately, and then gave us the roadmap to get us out of there. Though CNN, none of those people would touch that guy. They wouldn't touch him. They wouldn't talk about him. Nothing. They all went pro-war. There was only one voice that was, I'm not going to say anti-war, but was questioning the war. Why are we doing this? Why are we killing Soleimani? They killed Soleimani. I thought the Soleimani thing was a righteous kill. Tucker was against that. He's like, why are we stirring up this hornet's nest in this region? Blah, 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 blah. Like, Tucker has been, there was another one where he said, when he was talking about Ukraine, he's like, what's the American win here? What do we get? Why is it important to us as Americans? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And that's where my little elaborate theory is going to come in a second. We'll see.
Tucker Carlson, that this might blow a lot of shitlibs' minds, but Tucker Carlson doing way better journalism, especially the last couple years, than everybody else combined in cable news. They're all horrible. He would tell the truth about Julian Assange. He would tell the truth about Syria. He would tell the truth about Venezuela.
Him standing up for Julian Assange, I'm very surprised that the left didn't give him his flowers for that, because Julian Assange is essentially he is a political prisoner, and the story is not as simplistic as people think it is. But long story short, if you go to the letter of law of our Constitution, the way this guy's being treated is unjustifiable. And again, none of the left is standing up for him. As a matter of fact, Cenk actually implied that Julian Assange was working for the Russians because he had said that the dossier or whatever did not come from a Clinton operative, because they had gotten emails and stuff. They had gotten emails. They got into Hillary's emails. Remember that? And John Podesta and all the rest of it. And Hillary's camp was saying, "Oh, that was Trump." Blah blah blah. So then Assange came out and said, "No, I didn't get it from anybody in the Trump campaign. It was actually a Clinton operative that gave it to me." Cenk went on TV the next day and basically was implying that Assange, because he put that out there, he got flipped for the Russians. He's like, I don't know if I can trust him anymore because this is working with the Russian narrative. Yeah. But Chris, Cenk is still left wing though. Cenk is still left wing, but Jimmy is not. Okay, we continue.
Venezuela. He would tell the truth about Ukraine right now, and now he's telling the truth about vaccines and how Big Pharma corrupted everything around COVID.
Here's Max Blumenthal. Tucker Carlson, Fox's top-rated host and the most outspoken, influential critic of NATO's Ukraine proxy war on national TV, was fired just weeks after the 20th anniversary of MSNBC firing its top-rated host, Phil Donahue, for opposing the Iraq War. U.S. cable news is regime media.
Okay, that's where my theory comes in. So almost Phil Donahue had a pretty successful show, but he was really like, I don't know about this Iraq thing, man.
Yeah.
And they termed him for that. Because you need, because here's the thing, you're technically supposed to get a congressional, okay, we're going to war.
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But you know, just like Putin said, he called it a special operation or whatever. We called it I forgot what we called the invasion of Iraq. we didn't call it an invasion and attack. We called it something else so that we could, you know, circumvent our own laws. Just like Obama did with al-Awlaki. They changed the law like literally 24 hours before, and then they killed the homie. Radiallahu anhu. But like this to me is what it's really about, dear listener.
That's so interesting, yeah.
Tucker's anti-war stance relative to Ukraine, Russia, when even everybody on the right was also saying, oh, Russians are bad, Russians are bad. I was in the sauna with like my far right guy at the gym. He was like, oh yeah, it's fucking Russians, blah, blah. I'm like, holy shit, this guy.
Yeah.
Tucker was the only person, only in the top 5. We Rachel Maddow, Don, whoever.
Yeah.
He was the only one that was saying, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
How does this benefit America?
Yeah.
Why are we going to war? What does this have to do with us? Why are we doing this? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to do with those people. I'm figured out. Okay, now watch.
I want to point out that I tweeted out the same sentiment before Max tweeted that out. So that was, if you go track.
I had that. Look at it right here.
There it is.
So now there are 0 people telling the truth about Ukraine or war in general on TV news. 0.
No, I also tweeted out the thing.
Right.
Yikes.
So now all of us are going to be are primed for war. This is one of the things that kills me about us. And I love us, but this is one thing that kills me. Today, if you say Iraq war, just or no, 9.9 people out of 10 are going to say no. I say Iraq war, were we lied into that war, yes or no? 9.9 out of 10 people, Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, are going to say yes, we were lied into the war. Then I'm going to ask you the next question. Who convinced you? Who convinced me that that Ahmed over there in Tikrit, in his windbreakers and his fucking sandals, who convinced us that that kid, that 19-year-old, posed a danger to you?
Yeah.
Who convinced you of that? It wasn't Bush. No disrespect. He was a former president. He wasn't the most articulate individual. Who convinced you that you needed to go to war? It was CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. It was the media. It was the media that got you to not even ask the question. And it was a small group of leftists that were saying, what the fuck are we doing? Why? What does Ahmed have to do with anything? And don't you remember? And what do we say? This is what I said because I was completely propagandized. You're unpatriotic. You hate this country. Shame on you. I'm an immigrant. I came in here. I love the country more than you. Blah, 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 blah. Because I was completely propagandized. So what? The propaganda stopped after Iraq? The war propaganda in America stopped after Iraq? Think.
Makes you wonder what's coming next. Yeah.
About Phil Donahue.
Okay.
So that was a big, nice pull for me. I bet you Max copied me.
I'm sure he did.
I got to hold on for a second because this is important. And this guy's speaking for a lot of fucking people. My friends are dead because of that deception.
Jeez.
And so my enemies are also dead because of that deception. This is the thing that gets me is like,
yeah,
a fucking crime of biblical proportions happened, and our media was front and center of it, and nobody's held accountable.
Yeah.
And they're doing it again, and we're just going along with it. Oh yeah, Putin's a bad guy, and nobody thinks to themselves, well, shit, we had 4 years of Putin in our. And nobody's. I used to say when this whole Russiagate bullshit was happening, I said, was Vladimir Putin around in 2015? How the fuck? This dude just showed up out of nowhere, and like nobody's questioning it. And it's like, we had 4 years of Putin propaganda, and then boom, right as Putin saw that Trump wasn't going to get his way and win, he went and invaded because he understood that Joe Biden was corrupt and weak and wasn't going to do anything. I'm sorry, we continue. But that had to be stated. That what Ascender Prime said had to be stated.
Yeah, for sure.
People died because of the lies that the media told us. And there's nothing. That's why I tell you guys, I was completely propagandized. Guys, we got to get out of this ego. Ego is going to kill you. Nobody wants to believe that they could be fooled or duped or whatever. So they don't want to say I was propagandized because they've got an ego. But it's important for me to say it. That way, when I watch the news, I'm on guard. But if you think you're completely immune to propaganda, you don't have a shot in the world. We continue.
Here's Glenn Greenwald. Tucker was the cable host who most, and I would say only, opposed the U.S.
No, Leah. No, Leah, they really were not.
proxy war in Ukraine.
Only one. Who else?
No one else.
Zero. If there was another person, we would know.
Absolutely. Denounced the CIA, FBI, and Department of Homeland Security for its systemic lies and corruption. Devoted himself to a pardon for Julian Assange, and also covered the issue of Julian Assange when nobody else did.
That's right.
Objected to regime change efforts in Cuba, criticized Trump administration's militarism. And I pointed out he also accurately covered and challenged the dirty war on Syria, including, I would argue, one of the most censored stories in history, the OPCW's Duma cover-up scandal. Unlike everybody else on cable.
The OPCW Duma scandal, the cover-up, is actually what really was the death knell, the fracture between Jimmy Dore and TYT, if you guys remember that. As Mate did the great coverage about it, and Anna got all upset because Jimmy was well, actually, no, Anna went after Aaron Mate. Remember that? Anna was like, Aaron Mate doesn't know anything, blah, 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 and we're gonna bring in a real guy who knows what the hell is going on. And then they brought in the real guy. So you got Aaron Mate's award-winning journalist, right? Anna goes crazy on Aaron Mate over this Duma thing, and then she's like, we're gonna bring a real guy in there who's on the ground who knows what the hell he's talking about. So like, all right, John, here he is. Turns out the specialist that they had was some dude in Brooklyn. I don't know if you guys remember this. But the guy was in Brooklyn. He's like, actually, she's like, where in Syria are you? He's like, I'm in Brooklyn. The dude had never been to Syria. It was an absolute disaster. That was the whole Duma situation. But again, this is the ego thing. We continue.
TV and almost all of.
By the way, I'm seeing a couple new people here. Like, share, comment, subscribe. The more subscribers I get, the more videos we'll shoot. So there you go. All right, we continue.
Leftist media. And for all my disagreements with Tucker, immigration, China, domestic policy, it's just a fact on certain issues, really important issues, like Ukraine, neocon policy, the Syria dirty war, Julian Assange, censoring dissenting voices. He was more accurate and adversarial than anybody else on TV and even in most leftist media. It's just.
He's right. Leftist, well, my understanding of leftism, and I'm legitimately unsophisticated relative to leftism, which is why I appreciate people like Ben. I appreciate people like Sims and others who are left. Rigvert. There's a guy named Rig here who's probably like my I look for him in the comment section when I'm saying something like too right. I look for Rig to try to balance it out. But he's right here. I was shocked at how pro-war the left has been. I was really shocked at that. Because the left-wingers I knew during 9/11 were almost completely peaceniks, you know? We need to find a different way, blah, 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 blah. But so when I started like listening to leftists and things like that, when it came to war, I had an assumption. I had an assumption as to how they were gonna comport themselves or how they were gonna talk about it. And that's been the biggest surprise to me since embracing certain left-wing ideas. The biggest surprise to me is how pro-war the left is at this point. I'm absolutely blown away. I'm absolutely blown away by that because it's just crazy to me. Okay, let's keep going. Soraya's coming back. Don't worry. We'll take care of some kid stuff, I think.
It's sad, but it's true.
And again, it would blow most people's minds to know that. But you know, he has more Democrats watching him in the demo than MSNBC.
Absolutely, yes.
And there can't be that many people hate watching. There can't be more people more Democrats hate watching Tucker than are love watching Rachel Maddow.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I've tried to tell my my trans friends. there are a bunch of Democrats, a bunch of blue people watching Tucker Carlson. And to Jimmy's point, it can't all be that they're hate watching Tucker Carlson. That's not what's happening.
No.
And so what's happening is, and there are things that Tucker is saying that the left CNN and MSNBC won't say, and that's why these people tune in. 100%. And there are also perspectives that they share with Tucker. Hey, I'm going to drop a bomb on you guys. Listen very closely. There are perspectives that Tucker shares explicitly that is unorthodox and heretical for those same sentiments to be shared on left-wing programming. So because CNN won't deal with Leah Thomas in a way that most Americans deal with it, they're now hamstrung. That's just one example. But I try to tell people, especially my trans friends, if you think that it's only Republicans that have a problem with Leah Thomas,
right?
Okay. There's a reason that Tucker is massively popular among Democrats. You know why? Because I can watch it in the privacy of my home, and I never have to tell you.
Yeah.
Because I can watch Tucker and agree with about 50% of what he's saying, but then I'm going to go on Facebook and say, that Tucker Carlson, that racist bastard, blah, 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 blah. Then all your left friends will say, yeah, but the entire time this person's a fan. This is how Trump gets elected. It's the same principle. Oh, man, fuck that guy. You put on Facebook, hey, fuck Trump, I don't like that guy. But then inside, you're watching him every time he's on Twitter or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, no, these were not hate watches. Tucker Carlson was popular across the board with everybody. Okay? And that has implications. We continue.
Yep. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why cable news, as Chomsky pointed out, the news business is about manufacturing consent. Well, Tucker stopped manufacturing consent on several fronts. He stopped manufacturing COVID consent, vaccine consent. He stopped manufacturing consent about the war, which is one of the biggest. So those are the two biggest things you can stop manufacturing consent about. And so he's not useful to the machine anymore. And that's why they took away all his advertising, but he was still useful to. And so now that's that. Go ahead. You want to say something, Kurt?
I just saw some clip of him. He must have just done this speech at like the Heritage Foundation defending the black socialists who got arrested.
Yes. I got that clip.
Oh,
we show that.
No,
yeah.
Oh, that's another thing too. Yeah, he's the only one. He blew the whistle on Russiagate, right?
Absolutely, he did. He called bullshit on Russiagate from the start and brought on leftists like us who would challenge it when leftist outlets would freeze us out. But Wyatt Reed points this out, that even though advertisers boycotted Tucker Carlson, because he was the highest rated host, he was still incredibly valuable to the network. So Wyatt Reed says Fox lost more money by firing Tucker Carlson than it spent to settle the Dominion lawsuit. And already,
you think?
Shares of Fox Corp, the network's parent company, fell by 5% after the announcement of Tucker Carlson leaving, wiping $690 million from its market value. And even though the Dominion settlement was more, Fox will ultimately pay less because they can write off some of that.
They're going to get a tax cut break.
Exactly,
Is Fox going to replace him with Dylan Mulvaney?
So that's an example where the bottom line, it's not just about the bottom line. Insofar as Tucker's stance against militarism influenced his firing, which I think it did, then this companies are not just there for their profits, they're also there to enforce the state line.
Guys, this is a thing where this is so important for us to understand. Please focus. What we found in the last 6 months is that our elements of our intelligence apparatus, FBI, CIA, NSA, blah, 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 RSG, blah, 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 blah. We know that they contacted Twitter, Facebook, etc. All of these social media sites where people were allowed to speak and ventilate their thoughts, and was managing the speech of Americans.
Yep.
Including Americans like RFK Jr., for example. We know what happened with Trump, but they were managing the speech of Americans. We know that. Now, we've got the most popular guy who is the only one saying anything negative about war, and he just so happens he's also the most popular guy. Maybe there's a correlation there. Maybe Americans are like fatigued of all this jihad. Maybe we're tired of fighting everybody on the fucking planet. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's possible. So now we get the only dissenting voice relative to war. Now he's gone. So now when you look at the mainstream media or legacy media,
they're all going to be saying the same thing.
They're all saying the same thing. And if you look at what they tried to do with Twitter and Facebook, which they did, now everybody has to say the same thing. The people who were saying fascist for years relative to Trump cannot see what's right in front of them. I hope you realize Fox is a right-wing station. They fired Tucker Carlson, who was their biggest cash cow, which means that there is one principle that's higher to these people than money. Think! What is more important to them than money? The answer is obvious. Power. Because the only value money has is its ability to give you power. Mm-hmm. I want something in the store. I don't have the power to get it because I don't have enough money. I go in the store, now I have power to get it because now I have the money. If I take it without the money, I'm going to prison. Mm-hmm. So money is an exchange of power. These people understand that. These people are willing to set a bunch of money on fire to maintain a certain level of power. So you've got all these legacy media corps saying the same thing, and you got one black jelly bean dissenting. And then on the other hand, you get people like Jimmy Dore and the rest of them, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but during the whole Ukraine thing, they were shutting down people's channels, destroying people's channels for saying the wrong thing. We, who were vaccinated, both of us got vaccinated. We have a strike right now. We have a community guideline strike right now on our channel for quoting the CDC. When CDC said...
Is that when they said medical misinformation?
Yes.
When we were quoting the CDC.
Correct. When they said that they withheld the information because the American public wasn't ready to interpret it accurately. I read verbatim. We got a strike for it. My point is, you don't see what's happening?
Yeah.
But see, what's happened is, AOC and the rest of y'all, they got you guys operating on an emotional level. And emotions are important, but they got you operating on an emotional level, and you're not seeing what's happening. These people want to homogenize communication and speech, because if you homogenize speech, then you homogenize thought, and if you homogenize thought, you can control 380 million people. There's a lot of people in America. How are you going to control those people? The media. You restrict what they can say, and here's the other thing. You restrict what they can hear.
Exactly.
It's just a fact.
Because people are so busy, especially in this economy, just working and coming home, that they don't have the time to do a bunch of research. So they're relying on the news to let them know what's going on in the world around them. So if you silence the one voice that's different than all the rest, then you really can control the public. Wow, unbelievable.
Wa alaikum. Ya Ibn Asrafel. No, we're not on Rumble yet, but we probably should be. But I mean, guys, I mean, just think. I mean, this is what's going on, and if until and you know, I got in a conflict one time. People were like, why are you always going after? You know, you're supposed to punch up, go after the powerful, stop going after. And I'm like, no. You know why? Because the powerful cannot be reasoned with. These people cannot be reasoned with. They literally sent people when they're 18, 19 years old, they sent them off to a war on a lie that they knew was a lie. You cannot reason with people like that. Yeah. So you have to reason with people on our level who have influence, who can vote.
Right,
Who can make shit very uncomfortable. Who can channel their capital certain ways. Who can organize.
Right.
We can't talk to these people.
Right.
They're beyond talking to.
But they understand the power of the masses. That's the thing. And so they want to get us all on their page and living in this deception.
Correct.
Unbelievable.
Correct. And you know, it's really interesting. It's really interesting because he brought up Dylan Mulvaney. So Budweiser pulls this stunt and whatever. I mean, to me, I'm not even gonna touch that one. Let's just go with the principle. Okay, so they put Dylan Mulvaney in there. Budweiser starts losing millions of dollars, and they fired those people.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and why? Because for Budweiser, money trumps ideology. Okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Their actions in firing Dylan, in firing the people that you know, basically giving a carcass, giving a head to the people that are demanding the head of this person for daring to put a trans person in association with their product. So Budweiser had to deliver a couple heads to the barbarians at the gate and say, see, we're with you guys, okay? Why? Because to them, money is more important than transgender ideology. Now, look, it's an ideology, okay? And I'm not using ideology in a negative connotation. I'm just saying that the actions of Budweiser demonstrated what was most important to them, and that was money over ideology. What do the actions of Fox News tell us? There is an ideology that's more important to them than money. It's the inversion of what happened with Budweiser. You don't think that the bean counters are saying, listen, Rupert, if you term this guy, we're going to lose more money with him than with the lawsuit. That means that there is a principle that they're operating under that's more than capital. And that should terrify you. But we're too busy going, ha ha, Tucker Carlson, ha ha. Okay. But to me, the question I want to ask is, what the fuck is Fox's main principle then? Because if it's not money, what is it? Because it's clearly not money if they got rid of Tucker. So what is it?
Yeah.
And it can't be popularity, because Tucker Carlson fans, the only people more crazy than Tucker Carlson fans are the Trump supporters, right? So it can't be popularity.
Right.
So what is the principle that's guiding Fox in making these decisions? That answer is really important. Really important. We continue. I don't hear anybody asking those questions because they've got you. It's all about the personality.
Yeah.
So with Trump, like, you're not thinking about what he's doing. It's his personality. Oh, look at this mean thing he said. So then you look at Tucker. Oh, look at this racist xenophobe. Yeah, he's a racist xenophobe, but he has other qualities too. So why are you guys getting rid of him? What's the higher principle?
Yeah.
We continue.
To what Max said about this being regime media, whether it's Fox News or MSNBC.
And journalists, as you've noticed with the Twitter files and other things, they're not there to tell you the truth about anything. Just like with COVID or the war or the Twitter files or censorship, that the journalists in America, 99.99% of them are there for narrative control, and they can't wait to do it. And so what another name for that is manufacturing consent. And so Tucker decided to stop manufacturing consent, and he wasn't doing the narrative control. In fact, they had to control his narrative. And so now you know where he is. But go ahead. You have more to show?
Well, there's a lot more. I mean, first of all, just to show, I mean, he's a weird dude. I mean, for example, his views on immigration I found to be pretty vile. So, for example, this is some of the stuff he said.
So now here's where we can both wholeheartedly disagree with Tucker.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to stand with him to oppose nuclear war.
Absolutely.
Or censorship or authoritarianism from vaccine passports. So here, let's watch. This is the part.
Well, this is an example of the kind of vile stuff he would say about immigrants.
Instead, our leaders demand that you shut up and accept this. We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided. Immigration is a form of atonement. Previous leaders of our country committed sins. We must pay for those sins by welcoming an endless chain of migrant caravans. That's the argument they make. If it sounds like something that some dopey sociology professor at Long Beach State thought up half drunk in the 70s, you're right. That's pretty much exactly what it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's the stuff where, you know.
When was this?
That's a few years ago, but that's the kind of stuff
Was
where.
this when there was the caravan that was coming up from somewhere? It was like a huge story for like a month. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do remember
Maybe,
that.
yeah.
Yes, the caravan, they were all criminals.
Yeah, they were gonna.
And
was it like the Mariel boat left again? Was that what it was like? Or no?
No, they were not all criminal.
He's
I don't know.
mocking it.
Oh, okay.
He's just being.
Okay.
He's like, yeah.
joke I used to do is there are 1,000 Hispanics. They're all criminals, and they're walking to America. And I'm like, what kind of a criminal walks across Mexico the long way and then steals a car?
Right. Yeah. That's a bad thing.
Right? Those are some pretty remedial criminals. I think we could absorb those. But so you object mostly to what he said about more immigrants make our country poorer and dirtier.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
if you hire so many of them as cleaning people, it doesn't add up.
That doesn't add up. That doesn't add up at all, right? So,
Yeah, in our phantom conversation with Jimmy asked me about how come you're such a right-wing Christian, but you have such a liberal immigration policy, and I said, oh, that's because I believe the Bible. Because the only thing the Bible tells you to do is love the immigrant, and God threatens to fuck you up in your whole country if you don't. That's in the Bible. people claim to be Christians but don't know that about immigration. So he went on Tucker's show and he said, "I got to ask you a question. I talked to a friend of mine. He said that he has an open immigration policy because of the Bible. What do you think about that?" And Tucker goes, "Well, there's a separation of church and state."
Okay. All right.
Shout out to Tucker Carlson. Shout out to Tucker Carlson and all the other.
Well, he said he's Episcopalian or something.
Yeah, he's Episcopalian.
He himself, that was so funny when he was like, "I'm basically at the bottom, but even I say we should take 10 minutes to pray."
What did Jimmy say to you? He said, "Wow, okay, cool."
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, he was pretty.
And then we kept it moving.
He seemed like he was pretty impressed with that.
Well, obviously it stuck with him. He brought it up to Tucker, but Tucker appealed to the separation of church and state. Unbelievable. I love this shit. That just shows you, man, like the stuff in the Bible, it's not very difficult to understand. Mm-hmm. It's just we don't want to apply it. Yeah. That's all. That's 90% of the shit is pretty much open, very easy to interpret. Be good to the sojourner, or else I'll leave your wives widows and your children orphans. That's pretty. I don't think there's a lot of wiggle room there. But anyway, we continue.
I would vehemently push back against that.
Yeah, of course.
On him, is that because I
see they have to do this. They have to do this little segment on where they disagree with Tucker, because there's going to be some crazy TYT leftists that are like, "You're doing apologetics for Tucker Carlson." So they got to put something in there where they go, "Tucker's bad," just so that they can, manage the feelings of of people who've been propagandized to shut off their minds. Because listen, all of us are sinners. That means that all of us have blind spots where we're horrible. Right. So Tucker is afraid of brown people. He's afraid of the being at the top of the totem pole is being threatened by all these brown people. He's afraid. Okay, he's allowed to be afraid in public. He's allowed to be afraid in public. I understand he's a racist, but 99% of racism is simply fear. Okay? I think we should be able to absorb some of that. I mean, you guys, you want to cancel every single racist there ever was, then give me all your money. Because all your money has Andrew Jackson and George, all these people who raped slaves and went into their mouth, took out their teeth and put them in their teeth, all types of evil shit. They're on your currency. So if every single racist we got to excise from our society, excellent. You can kill two birds with one stone. You won't have to touch any of that racist money anymore, and you can give me reparations. Give me all your money. I mean, that's where we're going. Yeah. But they had to put this out there.
Why is Vin turning into Dr. Umar? I'm alone.
I can't be Dr. Umar with the snow bunny. I've always been like this, though. Anyway, we continue.
Think immigrants actually make our country stronger.
Well, what is he saying? If this was a few years ago, is that part of the reason he's gone? Is not saying enough stuff like that and saying too much stuff like the other?
Okay, I got to address this. I got to address Benito here. How Americans understand Russia and the war in Ukraine really boggles my mind. Let Russia keep waging war on neighbors, your allies, by the way. I don't consider Ukraine to be my ally. I don't ally with anybody that has Nazi marches in the middle of their street.
Fuck out of here.
Because you are scared. How weak are Americans these days? Well, I don't know, Benito. It looks to me, number one, it's out in public now. We've got special operations soldiers down there. We've sent $100 billion to those people. And one thing you could say about Americans relative to war, we're not scared of killing anybody. No. This has nothing to do. I'm not afraid of Russia. Russia doesn't even have the GDP of Los Angeles. Like this high school. Oh, you're scared. Yeah. No, Benito, why are you typing? Why don't you strap up and go to Ukraine? They're taking volunteers. Strap up and go to Ukraine. Why are you telling us to go clean up the mess? If you believe so much that the Russians are terrible, what are you doing online?
Right.
I'll tell you the God's honest truth. If I thought that Mr. Putin and what he was doing over there was an existential threat, I'd be over there. But you believe they are, so go over there then. Go ahead. See, this I gotta tell y'all, this dude's probably European. This whole thing where America fits the bill and fights your wars and all the rest of it, y'all have gotten way too comfortable with that. So now you're in this situation, and instead of you saying, I'm going to strap up and go there, and you're now trying to tell America to continue sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these people. Nah, bro, you do it. You do it. I got a homeless crisis in this country.
Yeah.
I got Americans who are dying every year because they can't afford health care. There's a lot of shit that I want to do with $100 billion.
Left right here. Not sent over there for war.
Yeah.
I don't want to help fund anybody's war.
Go over there and do jihad yourself.
Ukraine is talking real big because they have our money flowing in.
Correct.
They should shut the fuck up and actually start listening and see how they can work together on that borderline. And we should get out of there because we don't have any business being in the middle of their situation. All that we're doing is bolstering up Ukraine to act like a bully when they should be working together. This is crazy.
Whoo! Hey, don't come after America to me.
Yeah.
That's a line. That's a line you do not cross.
Clearly.
Do not fuck with this country. We got a lot of problems. We got a lot of problems. But cowardice is not one of them.
Nope.
It's the opposite problem.
Right.
Fuck out of here.
Right.
Fuck out of here. Whoo.
I mean, he certainly has, in less years, he's certainly done a lot more segments that are anti-war, pro-Julian Assange. This is just a sample of some of the Julian Assange segments he did, and that right there is more than most other cable news shows combined. Everyone else just ignores Julian Assange or cheers on his imprisonment. Tucker Carlson not only covered it, but actually lobbied hard the Trump administration to give him a pardon, which ultimately didn't happen.
Yes, and he would bring me on to talk about it all the time, even when he didn't agree with me on that. He let me come on his show and advocate for Julian Assange, and that was nobody else would do that.
Okay, if you're on the left, I need you to answer that question. I need you to answer that question. Because, to be honest with you, not even... If I look at the last 2 years, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but Tucker has done more pro-Julian Assange coverage than TYT has. I've seen Greenwald talk about Assange. I've seen Jimmy. They brought on Jimmy to talk about Assange. If TYT doesn't want to screw it, then bring somebody on and let them say it, which is why Tucker does that.
Yeah. Right.
Because he's able to, Jimmy said that, and Greenwald said that, and all that. But at least he brought it out there.
Yeah.
If you're on the left, ask yourself, what the hell is going on with Julian Assange and left-wing media? That's a serious question. Yeah. Real serious question. We continue. Cenk sneered Assange, and we talked about that. He was also part of the Russian conspiracy, remember. We continue.
Here's Michael Tracy. Fox News has eliminated the only reason why anyone under 40 pays any attention to Fox News.
That is true.
And, and this idea that he was a Trump sycophant.
He wasn't.
It's just not true. For example, Fox's Tucker Carlson breaks with colleagues and criticizes Trump's strike on Iranian generals.
Yes.
When Trump sided again with his neocon cabinet, people like Tucker Carlson was...
Okay, this is talking about the Soleimani hit. I thought the Soleimani hit was a righteous kill. Maybe, I was being too personal about that, but it is what it is. But even Tucker disagreed with that. And by the way, the Soleimani hit was a very precision. It was a precise strike. They killed Soleimani and his driver, and that's it.
Wow.
And if you think about American operations, we did that whole little spinning blade thing in that thing. Gruesome, but it made it so that it's literally it's from a drone, and it's literally just cuts you to shreds. Jeez. Yeah, it's unbelievable. But there's no gunpowder, there's no cordite, there's no, so it just basically isolates the killing. But yeah, it's pretty grody. But yeah, we continue.
Pretty much the only Republican voice, prominent one, to criticize that. Here's Anya Parmpil. She points this out.
Ian Kirby, not very pro-life about Soleimani, Vin. Yep, you're right. That's why I said that was personal, emotional. But you're right. That's not a pro-life principle. Good call out. We continue. See, there's nothing wrong with admitting you're wrong. Nothing at all. I didn't die. I didn't disappear. I'm still here. It's okay.
Ego's still intact?
Ego's still intact?
All right. No tears? All right.
Unbelievable. It's very easy. Just admit it. We continue.
I wrote in March, if the Dominion lawsuit succeeds in bankrupting Trump...
Bankrupting Fox.
Fox. or even casting Tucker Carlson as a network scapegoat, it will have succeeded in punishing the media's preeminent opponent of the escalating Ukraine proxy war.
Yep.
It is interesting that right after this Dominion settlement happens, he gets fired. But what's interesting, he often gets accused of, pushing Trump's claims about January 6th, but he didn't. He pushed back on them. This is a CNN media reporter pointing this out.
I didn't know that he did, because the way and even now I saw it get reported, it sounds like they do not mention that he was like, there's no evidence for this.
I know. They never mentioned that, but
I didn't know until we did the story.
You mean
Exactly.
for the Dominion thing?
Yes, I had no idea. He's the only guy on his show who was saying the same thing he was saying off in this phone conversation.
Yes.
But the media leaves that part, except for this one case. This is Oliver Darcy. He's a reporter with CNN. This is one of the few times that an establishment media journalist will acknowledge this. Tucker Carlson calls out Sidney Powell, and this was the lawyer who was, close to Trump and pushing all this stuff about vote rigging by Dominion. Calls out Sidney Powell, saying he asked her for evidence to support her election fraud claims, but she never sent us any evidence despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. And here he is.
We took Sidney Powell seriously. We had no intention of fighting with her. We've always respected her work.
Now, Sidney Powell was one of the major, the election was stolen type people.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
She was, I'm not going to say the face, but she was a major voice. Watch what Tucker says about this woman. This is very important.
Will acknowledge this. Tucker Carlson calls out Sidney Powell, and this was the lawyer who was, close to Trump and pushing all this stuff about vote rigging by Dominion. Calls out Sidney Powell, saying he asked her for evidence to support her election fraud claims, but she never sent us any evidence despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. And here he is.
We took Sidney Powell seriously. We had no intention of fighting with her. We've always respected her work. We simply wanted to see the details. How could you not want to see them? So we invited Sidney Powell on the show. We would have given her the whole hour. We would have given her the entire week, actually, and listened quietly the whole time at rapt attention. That's a big story. But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her.
Whoa.
When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, people in positions of authority, they told us Powell has never given them any evidence either, nor did she provide any today at the press conference. Powell did say that electronic voting is dangerous, and she's right. We're with her there. But she never demonstrated that a single actual vote was moved illegitimately by software from one candidate to another. Not one. So why are we telling you this? We're telling you this because it's true. And in the end, that's all that matters, the truth. It's our only hope. It's our best defense.
Now imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't going along with the party line. He came out and said,
Yeah.
you don't have any evidence.
Right.
Now, did he say other things that would cast aspersions? Sure. I'm sure he did. But my point is, he show me some.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask this question. If it was flipped the other way, if Biden was making this giant conspiracy theory that blah, 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 would anybody from CNN or MSNBC ever said there's no evidence of it? You know how I know that they wouldn't do that? Because that's exactly what the fuck happened with Russiagate.
Right.
They had no evidence, and they told us for years it was real. Mm-hmm. And not a single one of them would get on TV and say, well, there's no real evidence for this shit. This Steele dossier thing is actually a Clinton creation. You know, to this day, most of the people that were hounding me, calling me a Russian asset a couple years ago, when all this shit came out, they just don't talk about it. They act like the Russia thing never happened.
Yeah, I bet.
And I don't care. I don't care about what you say about me. The problem is, if you keep having a short memory, every time you get duped by the government, they can dupe you again.
Exactly. So
they had y'all saying shit on the internet, which is forever. I screenshotted a bunch of those statements because I knew it was bullshit. I was like, I'm gonna fucking bring this up in 5 years, and you know how petty I am.
I know.
You got to give him his props. He said it was bullshit. All right, we can take it.
Someone on MSNBC or CNN saying that about Russiagate.
Russiagate.
We're telling you this. There's no evidence of a Trump-Russia conspiracy or that Russia rigged the votes,
exactly.
Hacked the votes, because it's the truth. There's not one comparable personality on either of those networks, CNN or MSNBC, would ever say something like that.
No, and again, people, So look what they do this to Joe Rogan. They do it to Tucker Carlson. As soon as they start telling the truth, everybody loved Tucker Carlson before when he wore a bow tie.
The thing that you showed,
and he was repeating CIA talking points on Iraq War and all that. They all loved him. Everybody, Rachel Maddow used to do a show with him. Everybody loved him. But the problem is he started telling truth that they didn't like, and so they have to, just like they did to the guitarist who got vaccine injured.
Eric Clapton.
Yeah, they immediately go to he's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a
racist.
Same thing they did to Bernie Sanders. He's a sexist, he's a Russian. It's not because of.
Guys, you got it. You see this, right? Like this is what they did. Everybody was a Russian. Everybody was a Russian. You have to see this, right? And you know who the bad guy is around the corner, right? China.
Right, yeah.
This entire thing is set up for China.
It's just oh wow.
Because you got these people bound and determined to go to jihad with these people. And here's where my conspiracy theory comes in. They're taking Tucker out because Tucker would be so much more difficult to convince the American people to go to war with China when you do not have a unified media message. Because taking on China is not like taking on Iraq or Afghanistan. We're going to have a lot of deaths. It's going to hurt us. I believe we'll win. I'm always going to say that. But it's going to be a very long, arduous, horrible, terrible war. And they have to have everybody in line. That's my conspiracy theory for why Tucker was terminated.
Wow.
He is too... The reason why he should have been terminated is the reason why he was. Namely, that he appeals to people across the aisle. He's insanely popular, insanely articulate, and insanely influential. And you, in order to have an operation like attacking China or going to war with China or defending Taiwan, because here's what's happened. You have an analogy. You have the big bully, Russia, who comes into the completely pure and pristine Ukrainians. And it's the same setup. You got the big bully China going after the pristine and wonderful Taiwanians. And I'm sure they are. But in both cases, not my business. Not my business. It's not America's business. But that's what I believe. I believe that this is about making sure that we have all the voices in place that are going to say what needs to be said so that we go to war with China. That's where that's my theory. I don't think it's a big pharma thing. I think it's actually much worse. It's big.
Wow.
It's big jihad.
Yeah.
The stuff that they claim they don't like about Tucker, it was
3 years old, the one he showed.
That's right, because
him talking about immigrants, that was fine. His job was not in jeopardy when he said those things.
That's the kind of stuff that Bill and Hillary Clinton used to say. That about immigrants. They used to say that stuff. So again, yes. Go ahead, over to you.
Well, yeah, and look, here he is speaking recently, talking about the media being part of the control apparatus.
Oh, this is unbelievable. This is why they let him go.
And he even said, "I'm part of the problem."
Oh, this is on full send.
Like, I've spent my whole life in the media. My dad was in the media. Like, that is a big part of the revelation that's changed my life. Is the media are part of the control apparatus. Like, there's no. Yeah, I know, because you're younger and smarter, and you're like, yeah.
Oh,
but what if you're me and you spent your whole life in that world, and to look around and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow. Not only are they part of the problem, but I spent most of my life being part of the problem, defending the Iraq War. Like, I actually did that. Can you imagine if you did that?
Wow.
What do you think? What is one of your biggest regrets in your career?
Oh, defending the Iraq War.
That is it.
Well, I've had a million regrets. Not being more skeptical. Calling people names when I should have listened to what they were saying. Look, when someone makes a claim, there's only one question that's important at the very beginning, which is the claim true or not? So I say, you committed murder or you rigged the last election. Before you attack me as a crazy person for saying that, maybe you should explain whether you did it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for too long, I participated in the culture where I was like, anyone who thinks outside these pre-prescribed lanes is crazy, is a conspiracy theorist. And I just really regret that. I'm ashamed that I did that. And partly it was age, partly it was the world that I grew up in. So when you look at me and you're like, yeah, of course they're part of the means of control. I'm like, that's obvious to you because you're 28, but I just didn't see it at all. And I'm ashamed of that.
Isn't that what the media
Wow.
Has Rachel Maddow done an interview and said, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed of myself for all the Russiagate bullshit? I'm ashamed that I said that Putin was going to freeze out Fargo and Americans were going to die in Fargo, Minnesota because he's going to shut down the heat. She literally speculated on that. Has anybody in the media ever said that? Ever? I'm ashamed that I promoted the Iraq War.
Yeah, that's
feel
like
how
some
you
repentance.
Feel how you want to feel about him, dude. Feel how you want to feel about him, sis. That's fine how you feel. There is nobody in the media that will get on TV in front of a bunch of people younger than them and say, I was wrong. I'm ashamed of what I did. I should have been more skeptical. Show me. Show me. See, this is one of the reasons why, even though he's racist as hell, I have some trust in that guy because I see something of myself a little bit in that word. Like, yeah, I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I don't know if it's arrogance or humility, you get to a point where you just don't give a fuck about people's opinions. Mm-hmm. He obviously does not care about anybody's opinion of him. He's willing to say, I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's on a pretty major issue. Like, he said I was wrong about the Iraq war. That means you were wrong, and you know that you pushed an agenda forward that got more people killed. Like, that's... And you were wrong.
And he should have been skeptical and asked questions.
Right. I think that's... Like, I think that he's being honest with himself about, like, his participation in it, and it's weighing heavy on him. And he's like, I'm not going to carry on with this lie. Of course I have regrets about it. Good for him.
Why would Rachel Maddow say she's wrong about Russiagate if she still stands behind it? That's my point, then. She's standing behind a premise that has been proven to be demonstrably wrong, and yet she's still up there making millions, talking shit and lying. Meanwhile, Twitter was telling us, and YouTube was telling us, they were deplatforming people for misinformation and disinformation. She never corrected the Steele dossier shit, Ben. Well, she never corrected any of the bullshit that she said. That's my issue.
Yeah.
Ben, you don't like Tucker because he's on the right and blah, 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 blah. You've got to find a way to be objective, bro. This is honesty. This is honesty in a public environment saying he was wrong. Show me somebody else who's done that. Mm-hmm. Show me one person who's done that. Fuck it. Show me a YouTuber who's done that. People on YouTube and Facebook can't even admit when they're wrong, much less a guy with his popularity and reach. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm not interested in this personality shit. Like Tucker, like I don't need to like Tucker as a person to know when he's doing something that's virtuous. This is why I said, like, progressives, like, it's going to take us 10 years to actually do anything real in the country because we're so emotional about everything.
Again, I think we did witness a red pilling of Tucker Carlson, and that's why he became the focus of people trying to get him canceled because he went against the establishment narrative in such a hard way. And by the way, as soon as he started doing that, his show became the most popular show on cable news because...
I love Rig, but here goes Rig. Here goes Rig. If Fox News fired up the war drums against China, Tucker would be leading the charge. He blames them for COVID, for fentanyl, for stealing our tech, etc. Well, number one, that it would be completely against Tucker Carlson's recent policy on war. When we killed Soleimani, he was against it. He was against the Ukraine nonsense. So his pattern in the last 5 years says the opposite, Rig. Mm-hmm. Number two, what do you mean he blames them for COVID? No, it's clear that he blames Fauci for COVID. Now, the virus originated in China, and prior to Donald Trump being around, we used to say the Ebola virus, we used to say the West Nile virus. Anytime you would travel, they would shoot us with all types of, like, what's going on? Oh, we got West Nile over here, blah, blah, blah. They always named the virus after the region it came from. It was silly leftists who tried to distract us and call Trump racist because he called it the China virus. It originated in China. And West Nile, you know where West Nile virus? The Wuhan coronavirus lab is where it fucking came from. Come on, Rig. Ridiculous. Him blaming China for that is logical. It fucking originated from China. Come on, Rig, help, please. He's not. You're saying that he's gonna go to war with China because COVID originated there. So then we should. Then he would have, by that logic, then he would have celebrated the Soleimani hit because he's never said anything nice about Iranians. Though what you're saying doesn't follow logically at all. At all. We continue.
People are hungry for that kind of a message. I'm sure people got a kick out of it when he brought on Anya Parampel or Aaron Mate or me to debunk the wars and to tell them a counter narrative that you're not going to hear on MSNBC, CNN, or any place else on Fox. And as soon as he went against that, he became popular. And as soon as he went against that, that's when the propaganda media smears against him came. And that's when they tried to get.
He said China is intentionally killing U.S. citizens via fentanyl. And? What's your point? Where'd the fentanyl come from? Rick, is there a connection between fentanyl and China at all? At all? Is there? That doesn't mean that he's going to co-sign an all-out war, Rig. Saying that that coronavirus originated in China and saying that China is responsible for fentanyl coming into America, that's not the same as justifying a war.
Right.
They took away all his advertisers. That usually does it. That got rid of Glenn Beck. But it didn't do it this time because he is so popular. But then it finally came down from Rupert Murdoch because it came down from, I'm sure, Big Pharma.
Yeah, and the his role in coverage of the Ukraine proxy war.
By the way, let me just show you guys a real quick example of how this stuff works. Okay, so I'm saying that they're gonna set up for the big China offensive, and they need Tucker out of the way because Tucker's gonna ask too many questions. Riggs says he would be the first in line to support a China war because he's blaming the Chinese for fentanyl. Okay, well here's the DEA. The DEA, dear listener, is a drug enforcement agency in America. Here's what the DEA says. Fentanyl flowed to the United States, while Mexico and what's that word?
China
are the primary source countries for fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances trafficked directly in the United States. Rig? The Chinese are in the top 2 of how fentanyl gets into this country. I don't have a problem with Tucker saying that because he's probably right. The Chinese have made it clear that by 2050, they want to be at the top of the barrel. And if you want to be at the top of the barrel, we're at the top of the barrel. So, Rig, I'm sorry, but what you're saying doesn't make sense. Unless you're saying that Tucker shouldn't say factual things about China like coronavirus originated there or they're a giant importer of fentanyl, which is killing Americans. Like, what do you think? They're importing all this fentanyl into the country and they're like, oh shit, all these Americans are dying. We need to stop. Is that how the Chinese government operates? Is that how you think they operate? Unbelievable. We continue.
There's nothing else like it on
Nothing.
TV. Nothing. He constantly would bring anti-war voices. And it wasn't just partisan. So, one could maybe think he was challenging the Ukraine proxy war because this is a Biden administration policy, right? That if Trump was doing it, it might be different. But he was just as critical of Republicans who were supporting the Ukraine proxy war as he was the Biden administration. So, for example, here he is taking on Mitch McConnell.
Politicians in Washington remain mired in their weird boomer World War II fantasies where they're all Winston Churchill and Zelensky's the head of the French resistance. Yeah. We can give a million examples, but we can't resist, once again, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, last month.
I'm going to try to help explain to the American people that defeating the Russians in Ukraine is the single most important event going on in the world right now.
Defeating the Russians in Ukraine is not the single most important event in the world from the perspective of the United States. It's not even number 15 on the list. It's way below ending the importation of fentanyl into this country, and it's way, way below preserving the strength of the U.S. dollar.
Amen.
But if Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden and the rest of these reckless leaders have their way, an increasing number of countries will do what so many have already done, which is begin to reject the U.S. dollar. And what will happen then? Well, all those dollars will come home. And the value of our currency will plummet even further. And that will lead to poverty across the United States. And that will lead to the typical political and cultural volatility that inevitably follows economic collapse. Disaster. And we've seen it before. Of course, you know the famous pictures from Germany in the early 20s. Banknotes and wheelbarrows. When I buy a cup of coffee, that'll be 30 pounds of currency. Kids playing with worthless stacks of Deutschmarks. That was called Weimar, the Weimar Republic. And that government collapsed because of hyperinflation. And then economic collapse led to communist revolutions across Germany and ultimately to, fill in the blank, the Nazi regime.
Whoa. So he's talking about how the economic conditions in that time period led up to Nazism. But I thought this dude is like the proto-fascist. He should be cheering for all this stuff because he's a fascist, right? Isn't that what y'all are saying? He's a fascist. All those people controlling our speech, controlling what we say, controlling all this stuff. Those people are not fascists. No. It's Tucker who's saying we shouldn't go to war and all that stuff. That guy's the fascist, inshallah. We continue.
Wow.
And
no one is saying anything like that. No one.
No, and again, and
Well,
nobody
not now.
and nobody on MSNBC will challenge the party leadership on anything.
No.
Anything. And he was different when it comes to his own party. And Kurt, you mentioned this earlier. Tucker, and here's Alex Urbestein pointing this out. Tucker Carlson, of all people, at the Heritage Foundation of all places, denounces the DOJ for its prosecution of the African People's Socialist Party. What statements have pro-Black Lives Matter Democratic Party leaders and liberal media talking heads made on this subject? Where is the squad?
That's wild.
This is Tucker just a few days ago.
That this week, the Department of Justice would have indicted a group of people I don't agree with, by the way, on a lot of different issues. Black nationalist socialists from Florida, okay, kind of not my demographic, but would have indicted them for criticizing the U.S. position, the Biden administration's position on the war in Ukraine, and charged them with felonies for which they're each facing 10 years in prison. If you told me that could happen here, I would have laughed at you. No. We have a First Amendment. That can't happen here, but it has. That and a lot of other things, which are gravely unsettling, actually, and people who were rooted in the Cold War story and the reality of the Cold War, again, my age, 53, kind of know where that goes.
Again,
wow. You're right.
You compare that to like the squad.
Where are they?
Nothing.
Hey, you Negroes. Hey. You got these black socialists that are facing 10 years of Biden's DOJ. First of all, if you're black and you voted for Biden, you got to sit this one out. You got to sit down and shut the fuck up. Because I told you, Applejack told you, a lot of us told you that Biden was racist as hell. Biden told you he was a racist. You don't remember?
But
you don't remember? Biden said, he said, if you don't vote for me,
him, you're not black.
You ain't black. So while Trump was signing off on the First Step Act, getting black people out of prison when Biden put them in there goes Biden going after 10 black socialists. And who rode into their defense? TYT and the squad. AOC. Nope. I keep telling you, black people, I keep telling you, Negroes, that these progressives are no different than the Democrats that our parents were carrying water for. They're just the new version of the same Democratic Party, and you silly Negroes out here carrying water for these people. They don't have a black agenda for you. What's the distinctly black agenda over there in progressivism right now? These progressives will fight like mad for a 6'6" fucking 220-pound Leah Thomas to be in a fucking pool with a bunch of girls. They'll fight for that, but they won't fight for reparations. They're like, well, reparations are highly unpopular. So is fucking Leah Thomas.
Yeah.
Them folks are 1% of the population. We're 12 to 15. There is no black agenda in progressivism. So if you still believe in that shit, you deserve what you get. You voted for Biden, you deserve what you get. Now, them black socialists, I don't think they voted for Biden. But can you imagine the only person speaking out for the black socialists is Tucker Carlson? Meanwhile, when them white Antifa people were destroying property, all types of shit, Ayanna Pressley and them had funds and stuff for them. Were paying for their trials and all types of shit. Yeah. But keep believing, my Negroes. Keep believing that these progressives loves you. They don't love you. They'll dismiss. They're just as dismissive of you as the Democrats were to our parents. At least our parents had a reason. I mean, Kennedy was a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? At least our parents. We have no excuse for supporting these people. None. These people showed you their ass when they told you that you needed to vote for Joe Biden. I had all these silly white people telling me, oh, you need to vote for... They were telling me, you can't vote for Trump. You're black. He's racist, blah, blah, blah. Aren't you afraid for your children?
On this issue.
Nothing.
Black
Where's Joanne Reed?
Nowhere.
Back when they
nothing.
got arrested, the only place I'd ever heard of.
Yeah, where's Joanne Reed?
You know what's crazy too is everybody's walking around saying like racism doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, but then all of a sudden, like they're like, wait a minute, this guy's being a racist. You do need to vote the way we want you to vote. You know what I mean? All of a sudden they see racism.
Biden is racist. I've only seen him sniff Caucasian hair. That's right. That shows you how racist he is. It's probably because a black mom would stab you.
Yeah.
What are you doing to my dog?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? She'd stab you too, though, honestly.
Scoops was here like a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's why we're popular. That's why he's popular. He's giving a counter narrative to the establishment claptrap. That's what people want. And that's why YouTube and Fox News and MSNBC and even Democracy Now! Try to shut that narrative down. They don't want that's not comfortable for their advertisers or their donors. We're telling jokes in Nashville, Honolulu, Los Angeles, Northampton, Massachusetts.
All right. All right, that's where we are. That's where we are.
Yikes.
Much love to all you you beautiful people. All I can tell you is you're good to go. I know you've reached your end.
I have. My ADD's kicking in. It's too hard to sit here like this.
Go ahead.
Are you close?
Yeah. I'm going to go into my final thoughts like Jerry Springer used to do. He used to have these final thoughts.
Okay, then I'm going to start something.
He used to bring in all this scandalous shit. Then at the end, and he'd let him fight and shit. And then he'd sit down and say, "Here's my final thought. We should be on it." He'd try to act like some moral guy or whatever while he had these people making absolute fools of themselves. Art Perez says he loves you all. I love you all too. I love America. Okay, here's my final thought, guys. Number one, here's my premise. Here is the grid that Vincent looks through when I weigh media personalities or whatever. The first thing that I assume is that person has some flaw, some major flaw in their life. That comes from the fact that I'm a Christian. I believe in the doctrine of original sin. So anybody that I listen to, I know immediately is flawed and has blind spots as a presupposition. The second plank is, however, there's good in them. And the reason is that they're creating the image of God. So we're the image of God, and so there's good in us, but we're afflicted with sin, and so there's evil in us. So nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. Okay? What happens with the media is they try to make everybody either all good or all bad. Somebody's all a victim, and somebody's all an oppressor. It's a very simple bifurcated world, but that's not how it works, dear listener. Things are a lot more complicated than that. Tucker Carlson, like all human beings, is a complex human being. He is a result of his upbringing, his wealth, his privilege, his country, and he's also a product of his fears and his loves, etc., just like everybody else. Does Tucker Carlson have blind spots and issues that are toxic in his heart and life that comes out in the show? Absolutely. Tucker Carlson, during the entire George Floyd situation, in my view, was not very compassionate, not very understanding, and made no attempt to understand us and our pain. If you look at the migrant caravan and his statements about immigrants, of which I'm also an immigrant, by the way, along with my mother and brother, also extremely problematic, and again are a product of his fears. But I am not going to eliminate everything the man says because he has flaws. Dear listener, I need you to think rationally. Abraham Lincoln is almost universally known as the greatest president we've ever had. Dear listener, Abraham Lincoln was an avowed racist. He explicitly stated that he believed in scientific racism, the idea that white people were biologically superior to black people. He didn't believe that black people should be able to serve in juries, and definitely believed they should be able to vote, etc., etc., etc. However, he also saw other issues as well. Abraham Lincoln was a little bit of a complex figure. Go down into the South, they'll tell you, dear listener, if Abraham Lincoln was around today, the progressives would cancel him. They'd cancel him. When you're a privileged person who doesn't stand to lose anything based on these political figures, you can do that. You can cancel people all you want when you're a privileged person and things aren't going to affect you. But when you're not a privileged person and you need certain things to happen for you, then you have to think with a little bit more nuance, dear listener. So Tucker Carlson has issues. I'm well aware of them. But that doesn't make me ignore what he has to say. You know, the people who I ignore most of the time is, one, people who can never admit they're wrong. I ignore those people. Number two, people who always go with what their party line says. I ignore those people. Why? Because of the principle of original sin. How are you going along with everything the Democratic Party says as if there's no flaws? There's got to be flaws. You got to critique the system. Tucker critiques his own system. In the backyard of his own system. Okay, that makes me respect Tucker. Anna Kasparian at times has admitted that she was wrong. Cenk doesn't. That's why I have more respect for Anna than I do for Cenk. But this whole situation should make us extremely nervous, because something is going on with Fox where the money is subservient to another principle. And you got to think about that. This is Fox now. These are right-wingers. This is a home of the right wing where money is everything. And they made a decision now that is vastly unpopular and horrible for their bank account, which means that their motivation was something else, and those are the questions we should be asking. And the answers are kind of scary. They're kind of scary. So, it happens. Pretty sure 99% of people were racist in Lincoln's time. I agree. And Delaney, you're very young and you're impressionable. I'm not saying racism is cool, obviously, but this idea that we're just going to ignore somebody because they said some racist shit or they've got a couple racist bones in their bodies is unwise. Develop your own worldview. Be confident in your own worldview, but listen to people. Don't write people off and look for the nuance. All right. I think this is as much as I could say about the issue. I love all you beautiful people. We are in interesting times, and for that I am thankful. And we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay if we all stick together and if we all keep talking to each other. If we keep talking to each other and we stick together, we're going to be good. If we let these people divide us and trick us, then we're playing right into their hands. You think firing Tucker was a bad move by Fox? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. But I think it also indicates that Fox's value system is not monetary. And that's what I'm saying should terrify you. Love all you people. And just to remind all of you, as my brother Ian Kirby says, you better vote for Biden in 2024. Otherwise, you ain't black. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time.